Hello, hello. Welcome back.
Hello and welcome.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of Living Richly with Curo. This is episode 16. Yay. My name is
Yay.
Ann McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth, and I'm joined as always by my amazing partner, Atrisa.
Hi there. I am Atrisa Roberts, COO and partner, and happy to be here with you, Ann.
Always happy to be here with you. So today is an exciting episode. It's the third of a series that we have been doing called My Spouse Just Passed Away, Now What? So we're going to wrap this series today, and we have some exciting things to talk about, I think, with respect to the growth phase of becoming a widow. So we will talk more about that in a moment. But before we do that, let's do a quick A-team catch up. So what's going on? What's exciting in your world?
I think it's been a good summer. I do think it's been more of the same, but it's been a while just due to some travel and scheduling issues since I've gotten a chance to actually get back out on the golf course. So I get to play this evening, which I'm really excited about. It's actually an event called Wine and Nine, and it is all ladies, hosted by this golf course. And they serve us wine, and we play 9 holes of golf this evening. And it's just always fun to play in a really sort of relaxed, friendly environment. So I'm excited to get back out on the course today. But other than that, just still in vacation hangover recovery and getting back to reality that I'm no longer going to be by the pool every morning. Which is, kind of felt like a thud back down to earth from the high I was living on for a few days. So, yeah, other than that, things are going well. No reason to complain. How about you? What's
That's
new in your
awesome. That's awesome. I do have a question. Does your golf game get better as you drink more wine? It probably does to a certain point, right? And then there's probably like diminishing returns
And
the
that's
more
what
wine you drink.
I was exactly gonna say. It's to a point.
Yeah.
Usually, if I'm playing, I'll have. So I love these beverages in a can. It's by the Cutwater brand. So they have a tequila soda that's in a can. They're pretty boozy. So usually one is enough. But
Okay.
usually, like sipping on that one during my round kind of loosens me up
Yep.
enough to relax and get out of my head. But then
Yes.
once you go past one, it's now you're just sloppy and not paying attention. You're not ready to tee off because you're just drinking and laughing. So yeah, it does have diminishing returns after a certain point. But
Yeah.
I think tonight they serve us maybe 2 glasses. So I'm definitely gonna pace myself with the wine because I actually want to
Yeah.
play well today.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, that'll be fun. Yeah. I
Yeah, I'm
think,
excited.
part of golf is getting out of your head and loosening up your
Hmm.
body. And, it's hard because you have to think about your swing and your stance and all the things, but then sometimes you can overthink it. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, having a little wine will loosen you up a little bit. And as you said, get yourself out of your head.
Yeah, and golf is, I've said it before, it's a very mental sport. So as soon
Yes.
as you get stuck in your head, and especially if you find yourself in a negative place or you start criticizing, it just goes downhill really, really quickly. So sometimes, a little wine just helps keep it fun and light. And
Yeah.
typically I find myself playing better when I'm in that
Yeah.
headspace.
Awesome. Well, that'll be fun. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Hit them straight
Yes. And far, hopefully.
and far, straight and far. Those two things. Well, I'm doing well. What do I have to report? This past weekend, we drove to Annapolis, which was fun. I haven't been to Annapolis in years, and it's so beautiful. I love the water and the boats, and it was a gorgeous day. We dropped off Wally's older son for lacrosse camp, actually at the Navy, which was super
Wow.
cool. Yeah, that he got to experience that and he had a great time. And we took advantage of being in Annapolis and walked around and grabbed some breakfast down on the water. So it was lovely.
That sounds nice. I hate to admit it. I've only been to Annapolis once in the almost 10 years that I've lived here.
What?
Uh, but I do remember it being such a beautiful setting, like just on the water in the boats. So I'm glad you guys had a nice time. How did camp go?
It went well. I think he had a good time.
Okay.
Yeah, he said there were a few exercises that he didn't really, or
Mm,
skills that he didn't really understand, but I think the coaches explained it, and yeah, he had a good time. So I'm glad
okay.
he got the opportunity. But last time I was in Annapolis was the second and last time I ever ran a half marathon. Never doing that again. And it was raining, and that was the last experience I had had with Annapolis, which was not fun because
That's what
number
it's.
one, running half marathons, let's just stop there, period, not fun. On top of that, it was raining. So even though Annapolis was a beautiful place, that was not a great memory. So I'm glad I have
Yeah.
a new memory to think of when I think of
Yeah.
Annapolis.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, a half marathon is no small feat. So
Uh-huh.
at least you can say that you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I'll
was,
stick to
I
the
don't need
5Ks. I'll stick to 5Ks. I might push myself to a 10K this fall. I think I could do a 10K. I have no intention of ever putting my body through a half marathon, let alone a full. But so that's to be applauded.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't recommend it. I think 10K is a nice, that's a good amount of challenge. I think that's the perfect amount of challenge.
Yeah, you're like zero out of 10 does not recommend.
Exactly. 0 out of 10. I will not be joining you for the 10K, but I will be there to cheer you on. How about that? I can be your cheerleading section.
Yeah, TBD.
Okay. All right. Well, more on that. So,
Right.
all right. So let's get into our topic today. As we mentioned, this is the third part of our series. So if you haven't listened to the first and second of the series, that would be episode 14. That was our first about grief. So sort of the initial shock of when you lose a spouse, and what are some of the things you need to worry about doing, and then what are some of the things that you can push off. Number 15, which was last week's, was about growth, and today we're going to talk about grace. So we borrowed this GGG from a woman named Kathleen Reel, who's an expert in helping widows through this process, and she talks about these three phases. So we borrowed that from Kathleen because we thought it would be a great way to organize this series that we wanted to do. So if you haven't listened to the first two episodes, please go check them out. But today we're going to talk about grace or transformation. And both Teresa and I were really excited to talk about this phase because it feels like, you've gotten through a really tough transition, whether it was expected or it was an unexpected death of your spouse. It is an incredibly challenging period to go through. And regardless of how long it took you to go through those first two phases, here you are. You're ready for this next transformational phase, the grace phase. So, we're going to talk about some things today to maybe consider and just allow yourself to think about what this next phase of your life can be. Like. So, Teresa, why don't you kind of kick us off with one of the first things that we recommend to start thinking about if you are fortunate enough to find yourself in this phase now of grace and transformation? We can't hear you. I think you may have muted the microphone. There we go. Now we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. My
Just
apologies.
start over. No, that's okay. Just start over with whatever you were saying. It
Yeah,
was good,
whatever
I
I was
know.
saying. Okay. So, in this period of grace in your life, the first step is suggested to rediscover your own purpose. For people who have been married or partnered, especially if you were married young and have been married or were married for a very long time, losing your partner can leave a huge void in your life. Much of your adult life has been spent in partnership with someone. And of course, goals and dreams were created for the two of you. So when you lose that person, now you have this opportunity coming out of your grief phase to rediscover who you are and what your purpose is. What passions or interests do you have as an individual? What activities do you enjoy that bring you fulfillment? You might want to start volunteering or pursuing a new hobby. You might even consider starting a business or a new career. But finding what that passion and that purpose is usually the first step in this grace phase of life once you've experienced the loss of a spouse.
Yeah. So, the second thing we would recommend is to be ready and embrace change and new beginnings. We as humans are not naturally inclined to be comfortable with change, but the one constant we have in life, the one guarantee we have in life is change. And transformation, by definition, involves change, it involves new beginnings. And so you may feel a little bit of resistance, a little bit of fear, but we would just recommend to lean into that discomfort because it is all part of the process. So maybe at this point in your life, you are considering a lot of new things. Like maybe you are going to move out of your home, move to a new place. Maybe you want to be close to family or friends. Um, Even we've seen people kind of um, redefine their own identity. So you mentioned like starting a business, or maybe it's through volunteer work. But we would encourage you to just know that it is natural for change to feel daunting and sometimes overwhelming, but it can also be liberating. So try to take the positives of change and embrace any new opportunities that may come your way as a result of being in this phase.
Yeah, I always like to, and I even share this with our team sometimes, is that sometimes you have to find comfort in the discomfort or being comfortable in the uncomfortable, because change is always, that shape shifting is always going to feel uncomfortable to you. But if you just get settled into the fact that it's supposed to maybe be daunting and uncomfortable, then you can go through it a little easier.
Yeah. And it's similar to what we were talking about with grief, right? You can't hop over it. You can't skip over it. The only way to get through it is to go through it. And
Just to
so
go through it.
embracing that it's not supposed to feel easy. It's not supposed to feel natural, but it is absolutely part of this phase.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next thing suggested in this process is to find ways to honor your loved ones' memories. And this could be through creating a memorial, participating in activities that that person loved to do that reminds you of them. Or one of my personal favorites is simply sharing stories and memories with others. I think it's such an easy way to keep a person's spirit alive, is just to always share things that they did with you, or share stories with other people, even if those other people didn't know, your partner. Just talking about them in those moments that made you smile or made you happy is a good way to always honor their memory. And then just knowing that by keeping the memory alive, even as you push into a new phase of life, it can tend to bring comfort during those periods because you constantly feel connected to that person when you choose ways to honor them after their passing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think is it the Mexican tradition that they say that a person's memory is not dead until somebody doesn't call their
Doesn't
name
remember.
anymore. Yeah. So
Yeah,
as long as people are speaking your name, then you will be remembered forever.
yeah, absolutely. I think they call it the ofrenda in Mexican culture, to put pictures and things on the ofrenda in the family home to keep that person's memory alive.
Yes, that's a beautiful, beautiful tradition.
Mhm.
So, lastly, this is a good time to reflect on your own legacy. And anytime any of us lose a loved one, it's a pretty harsh reminder that we are mortal and that we are all eventually going there. And I think this is a good time to just check in on how you feel about the legacy that you would like to leave to your loved ones, your friends. How do you want to be remembered? And if you have identified this vision that you want to have for your life and then what you want your legacy to look and feel like, are you in line with that? And if not, what are some things that you need to do to get more further in line with that so that you feel like you are leaving the kind of legacy that you desire to leave? Have you ever written your own obituary? I know this sounds crazy, but have you ever done this, Teresa?
I have not.
I remember the first time somebody recommended it to you, I was like, you are insane. This is crazy. But after my sister passed away, probably I would say like a year later, I didn't do it right away, but after my sister passed away, I wrote my own obituary. And I have to say, it's a bizarre sort of experience, but it gets you so super clear on
Mm.
what you want people to say about you. Like, how do you want to
Wow.
be remembered? What do you want them to say at your funeral or your celebration of life? Do you want a funeral or do you want a celebration of life? I mean,
Right.
some of these things are really important to think through. And I highly recommend it. Again, when I first heard the idea, I thought it was completely bizarre, but it was a very powerful experience. And every day it gives you the opportunity to remember how you want to be remembered by folks and what you wrote down is important to you. And it's a nice check-in just to see, are we living in line with how we want to be remembered or not?
Yeah, I've never done it, but I understand how it could be powerful. It also, even thinking about it, gives me a little anxiety. Like, oh my God, what would I say about myself? What would I want other people to say about me? Have I been a good person? Right? It starts those questions in your head. Like, have been good? Have I been good to people? Like, will people be sad that I'm gone? I can see the power in that exercise. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe.
I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. Maybe just like we were talking about the glass of wine on the golf course, maybe a little
Right.
glass of wine to like settle into to this exercise
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it can be a little daunting. And I mean, here's the deal. Hopefully we'll have plenty of time to tweak it as we go. So just,
right.
your first draft doesn't have to be the one, but I think it's also like a form of manifesting because I
Mhm.
remember when I did this years ago, there were things that I wrote that I had accomplished that I wanted to put out into the universe and I wanted to start manifesting that hadn't even come true, but I was, writing hopefully years in advance. So I think it's a really powerful exercise to think about how we want to be remembered and then also some of the things that we may have not yet accomplished but are important for us to accomplish in life.
Yeah, I love that idea, the manifesting of it.
Yeah, it's a really cool exercise. So, highly recommend that. So, is there anything else, Teresa, you can think of at this phase of life, or any sort of last comments you want to make?
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit sort of before our recording, but I do think that the grace period, if you allow it to be, can be really hopeful, a hopeful time in your life. Because I know, at least for me, when I've lost parents, I always felt this sense of guilt about moving on. It almost felt like I was forgetting them by moving on and choosing to continue living. And
Right.
I think if you allow yourself in that grace period to really stay connected to their memory and understand that you're keeping that memory alive, and then just choose to move forward and create a life for you, and be open to what that next phase of life could look like. And for people who have lost spouses, that may mean, a new love interest. It definitely could mean new friends, like you mentioned last week. And that, as a couple, many of your friends are couples. So even seeking out new friendships in that time. But I do think that it can be really, really hopeful if you can allow yourself to go through the grief process and get to the grace place where life starts to open up in a new way for you.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I also think that if you are fortunate enough to get to this phase, which I think we should mention, having worked with widows, not everybody gets to this phase.
Yeah,
A
very
lot
true.
of people stay in the grief phase. Some people don't even make it to the growth phase. They're stuck in their grief. And you see statistics about couples who were attached at the hip and lived together
Mhm.
forever, and one of them passes and the other one passes within like 6 months, right? And
Mhm.
they talk about people dying of a broken heart. So if you do find yourself in this grace transformational phase and you're ready for it, I think there's also just take a moment to be grateful to yourself, grateful that you have done the hard work, that you've gone through the grief, you've gone through the growth, and now you're really ready because you have done work. This means that you have done what it takes to get to this
Right.
phase. So I think it's important to just acknowledge that if you're here, it's awesome. It's a huge testament to the work that you have done thus far. And so a moment of gratitude for yourself, I think, is warranted. So we congratulate you. We
Yes.
applaud you because again, we see people who unfortunately don't get past that first phase.
Yeah. And I do think having a good community around helps with that too, whether it's, siblings or children or neighbors, friends, having a community to keep you lifted, I think also helps you to get out of the grief phase and keep pushing forward. So don't neglect the power of community.
Yes, exactly. Support groups, therapists, however it shows up for you, all of that is beneficial and powerful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps us, and that wraps us for this series. We hope it was helpful. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, or you're going through something that you want to chat through, we are always available to speak with you. So please feel free to reach out. But before we officially wrap, let's do a little closing thought. So what do you have for us today for a closing thought?
Actually, I think you should go first today, Anne. I feel like I always start the closing thoughts.
Okay, I will go first.
Let you kick it off.
All right. You're going to love this one. This is specifically dedicated to you, Teresa.
Oh.
My weekly thought is, I think we all, and it's not just you, it's me. I think it's women in general, and probably a lot of men too. I think we need to be done with perfectionism for good. I think we just need to like break up with perfectionism. I think we need to kick it to the curb. I think it stems from a place, if you really think about why we try to be perfect, I think it stems from an emotion of fear, which is not how we want to show up in our lives. It's not how we want to live our lives. And the reality is we all do the best we possibly can on a daily basis with all the balls we have up in the air, which we've talked about before. And so I think we just need to be okay that sometimes things are not going to be perfect, and give ourselves grace and give ourselves the space to make mistakes and just show up and do the best we possibly can. But this idea that everything has to be perfect all the time, it's baloney, and it's just setting us up for failure. So that's my weekly thought.
Absolutely does. No, that's a great thought. And I'm a self-proclaimed star student. I'm a perpetual star student. So anything sometimes less than perfection feels like failure to me, which is something I've been working through as an adult. So that is a powerful reminder, is just to give up on the idea of perfectionism altogether and free yourself from that pressure, free myself from that pressure. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. I think, as long as we're doing the best we can, I do believe that we need to do the best we can. And you know what? The definition of the best we can is going to differ day by day, week by week, depending upon what we have going on. Sometimes like a 2 out of 10 is the best we have to give that day, and that's okay. But yeah, so I'm not saying to not do our best, but I am saying that not being perfect is okay. As long as we're showing up, we're doing our best, and we're showing up from a place of love and not fear. That's, I think, what is key.
Yeah, no, that's the goal, to show up and do and give our best every day. And I think if I stop thinking that perfection is the norm, it's not.
No,
it's normal for people to be imperfect. I think that helps to reset the mindset.
Yes, the expectation of yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So see, I told you it was for you this week.
Yeah, thank you. I needed it. I needed to hear it. I tend to beat myself up a lot when I feel like I'm less than star student. So thank you for that reminder.
Absolutely.
So my closing thought, and again, I don't even know if it's so much as I guess we would call it a closing thought. But during my recent vacation, I mentioned that it was with a group of my sorority sisters from college, people who I met 20 years ago, and we've stayed in contact with one another. It's not like we hadn't seen each other or spoken to each other in years before we got together. But as we were sitting down at dinner one night, we just kind of all started talking about what we do professionally. And I realized, even though I have known these women since we were literal teenagers, I really didn't have a clear understanding of what they actually did as professionals. It also got me thinking about my friends. And I don't know if you've ever seen these TikTok videos where friend groups will get together and put on PowerPoint presentations explaining to their friends what they do. I realized how often we know people, casually or personally, and we never really understand what they go to work and do every day. So as we started to talk and share, I just realized how accomplished these women are, how successful they've been. I mean, of the 12 of us there, I think there were 4 attorneys and a doctor and an orthodontist. And even though you know these things, when you really hear them talk about the work they do every day, I realize like, wow, I'm in such really great company. So
and a
I say,
COO and a COO of a very successful financial
I
planner
mean,
wealth
I'm no
management company.
slouch.
May I add?
I'm no
You're
slouch
no
myself.
slacker. Just want to
But
make sure we incorporated that into
thank
the
you.
mix.
But I do think it's important, though, to make sure we understand and tap into the people that we talk to all the time, and congratulate them and applaud them for the things that they've been accomplishing and doing, and starting law firms and starting dental practices. And those are really huge feats that I don't think we celebrate in one another enough, especially as groups of women friends. So I want to say shout out to my sorority sisters, those women in my life, and applaud just how far we've come and how much we've done in the last 20 years. And then just to remind everybody to pat people on the back, congratulate the people around you. I mean, even with my sister, like I think I kind of know what she does, but then she tells me stuff like, oh my God, I got a promotion. And I'm like, wait, you're good at your job. You're doing a really good job. So I just think it's important that even though we love people and they're close to us, that we even applaud them for the things that they're accomplishing outside of their relationships with us. So it was a good reminder for me. So I thought I would share it with you guys.
And I'm sure they're back to telling their friends and family, like, oh my gosh, look at Teresa and how successful she is and how much she's accomplished and how smart she is. And so it's good to recognize that all around.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder.
We're working really hard. And I think sometimes you can celebrate that in yourself and with others.
I think it's super important to celebrate that. Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So that officially wraps us for this week. A couple important reminders. Please send us in your questions. Surely y'all have questions, right? Surely you have financial questions that we can answer for you. So send those to us at podcast@curoprivatewealth.com. We will send you a $10 Amazon gift card if we answer your question on our podcast, which we are happy to do. We want to hear what's on your mind, what questions you have. There are no dumb questions. Just bring them on. We would be happy to answer them. If you found value in this episode, please share it with your friends. We're trying to get the word out so we can reach more people and help educate and inspire more people. So please give us a 5-star rating. Write a review. Let us know what you liked about the podcast. We really appreciate it. And again, it helps us reach more people. So that is a wrap for this week. We will see you again here next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Great to see you as always, Teresa.
You as well. Thanks, guys. Live richly.